Hi, everyone. We are the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And you are incredibly welcome to our conversation today and always, where we are perpetually, even when we're not conversing, two social scientists who are obsessed with the idea that understanding culture differently can help us change the world. So we look at both popped and lived culture from the lenses of social science. We talk about everything from the way that racism was both dealt with and ignored in Bridgerton to what exactly HBO has to say about sexual assault in the show Unbelievable, all the way up to just how much we really love Hallmark Christmas movies. And we love conversations. So however you are engaging with this particular one, we want to hear from you. So comment, retweet, reblog, whatever. We are available for the perpetual analysis of culture.
This video is part of our series where we like to look at pretty much anything that's streaming with a general focus on our areas of interest, usually focusing on women and other marginalized groups. But this is our OG Good Doctors content, The Handmaid's Tale, which we started covering because our doctorates focus explicitly on the roles of women in society, religion, gender, imprisonment, resistance. You get the sense of where we're going with this. If you're new to our coverage, hello and welcome. We don't do in-depth recaps. If you want that, you will have to go elsewhere. We love to analyze and nitpick the show to its bare bones, and we do it with all of our loyal subscribers and viewers. So we're up to season 4, episode 4, Milk. The duty of the recapping, brief recapping, falls to me. We are in Gilead in Canada, again, as the two main sites for this episode. We get June and Janine escaping Gilead in a train car full of milk. And a lot of things happen that upset us with June and Janine. We get Janine flashbacks, which, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I think those are the first Janine flashbacks we've gotten.
If not the first, then it has been a minute.
A minute. And how are we in season 4 and we don't know Janine's origin story? Oh, wait, because we spend too much time with June. I would like to start by saying I was incorrect about Janine not really pushing back against June, but I would like to say that the reason I thought that after episode 3 was because of who they showed me Janine was as a person and has never pushed back against June in her life. That was Alma's role, and Alma's dead. But apparently, jumping into a vat of milk was the proverbial straw, and our Janine pushed back a lot. So we'll talk about that. In Canada, we get some quality time with Rita, who's just the best, meditating through baking, being general loveliness, cooking food for Moira for helping her. Fantastic. Serena is a manipulative biatch who's decided that Rita's true joy in life is helping her, which is not at all accurate. Asks her to take care of the child. It goes well, but then Martuello drops off some paperwork, sneaky hot American, and eventually gets to the conclusion where Rita drops the big old bomb on Fred and hands him the sonogram, which was the 100% the best part of the episode. June and Janine make it to Canada, where they meet some questionable rebels, members of the resistance. We don't know who they are, what they're doing. We just know that they're led by a man who's a real dick. And we don't understand what happened there. We don't know why it was included. We don't know what they're telling us. But it ends with June and Janine getting to stay with that particular band of rebels, all for the cost of a blowjob. It's just so confusing. And that's where we are left, very confused at the end of the episode in Chicago with June and Janine. Dr. Kristen, what would you like to discuss about Milk? Aside from the fact that we're so tired of June, it like makes us actively hostile.
I've hit this point of numbness. Like when she's on a screen, I don't want to be watching it.
She was awful to Janine.
There are a lot of ways to tell stories, and you can tell stories primarily focusing on the plot. You can tell stories primarily focusing on the characters. The best stories, in my opinion, are the ones that balance those things. And I think the first season of Handmaid's Tale did. I think maybe even you can argue the second season did. And then when June made the decision to hand Nicole to Emily is when everything became about plot and nothing became about character. And this to me is why I loved every Janine moment we got in this episode, but though doesn't to me super fit with who they were telling us Janine was even 1 or 2 episodes ago. I am always appreciative of an honest conversation about pregnancy termination on television.
Yeah.
And even in this show where we actually haven't had an honest conversation about pregnancy termination, that yes, for some women, it can chemically enhance a propensity to depression, but not statistically significantly enough that we should be saying those things.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing, I don't know what it tells us about Janine in this episode. Like I can't figure out what.
I just had a flash though, as you were talking.
Okay.
Because this show loves to have seminal moments that like alter the character.
Yes. Which I mean is a human thing, so sure.
It's a human thing. So as we're talking this out, as we often do, figure out what we want to say while we're talking about it or what we think. I think what they want us to think was Janine watching her friends die and get hit by a train. Like the trauma of that kind of forced her to reevaluate her unending belief in June.
Possibly.
And like, because she also confronted her, like she knew they were in that situation. All of those handmaids knew they were in that situation because June handed them in.
Okay.
And like she confronts her on the train and she says, "Did you tell the eyes about us?
Yeah.
Like, why did you do that?" So I think maybe Janine prior to that point thought June was always going to look out for her. And that was the first time she really saw that like June looks out for June.
So, okay, cool. Let's go with the seminal. No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know. It's just a supposition.
But let's go with that seminal thing, right? So then what they want to tell us is that Janine was also a mother, which I don't know if we assumed that, but I don't know if we knew.
We did because her son that was in the flashbacks is in Gilead. And there's times where Janine like wants to find him and.
Cool. So she has a Hannah.
Yeah, she has a Hannah.
She has a Hannah. Yeah. Why? How does this connect then to her telling June, "You don't know what I would have done. I would have abandoned. Like I would not have traded us for Hannah."
Yeah.
Then I don't know then what story we're trying to like. You loved your son enough. You loved Caleb enough to then terminate your other pregnancy so you could take care of him more. Like, what are we doing? Which is not a narrative I love. Even though that may be very real to, I don't know what they were doing with that. I mean, I've certainly read stories where that's why women make the decision to terminate a second, third, or fourth pregnancy is out of primary love of the living children. But again, they tell 3/4 of a story and then drop the ball at the 10-yard line. And we don't really find out. So that was the thing. I couldn't figure out what this flashback was telling us about this Janine in this episode.
Right. Yeah. Cause like, as you just said, if Janine is confronting June about making that decision to sacrifice their liberty and autonomy because of the threat to Hannah, Janine's choice in the flashbacks doesn't make sense. Unless she's evolved because of what Gilead did to her. And like, this is the thing.
Then again, say that?
Yeah, this is the thing that frustrates me is we're drawing these conclusions that
They are.
Gilead has changed these women so much, and that's why they're making these different decisions. But the show could tell us that.
Yeah. And
they could have Janine say, like, I'm not the same person I was.
Like, yeah, you're right. Maybe at a different time I would have done that. But you know what? The third time Gilead ripped a child from my arms, I'm actually not like, you know, like there's a couple economical lines we could have done here to show and not tell in a certain way, because they did neither in this one. So I don't understand that. I don't appreciate the Rebel storyline at all. I don't. If you want to talk about the fact that some of the rebels are shitty people and just are looking to get blowjobs, like, okay, fine, but then talk about it. I don't understand how they connect to either Canada or Gilead, or obviously they're not Mayday. And so what does that mean? And I'm just going to reserve the right to not investigate that storyline until I know more about it, because it actually, if they just drop it now and we never deal with those men again, I will be incandescently angry. And right now I am just angry.
Yeah, I don't, again, like,
I can't figure out what we're doing with it.
We're getting 3 less episodes than we got last season, 3 fewer hours with which to work. Which, you know, the pacing of this season makes more sense. They're ratcheting things up for sure. But like, we talk about this all the time and you guys are probably sick of it, but we're going to keep saying it because you have a limited amount of time with which to tell a story. So why did you make that choice?
I would have loved more time. So if we're going to talk about the time economy of this episode, things we could have done, spent more time with Janine telling us things.
Yes.
Spend more time in Janine's past.
Yeah.
Could have spent more time with Rita.
Love it.
Never upset to spend more time with Rita. Could have waved hi to Emily.
What's the crack with Emily?
How's she doing? Let's check in on Luke.
You know,
all of this is great. I will say I don't want to sacrifice a single second of the Waterford storyline. That arc is genius. So I'm not, but I would like to sacrifice the entire Rebel catching them in a milk truck storyline at this point.
And there was so much like manufactured drama.
Yeah, and also like why milk? I've so many, like, if you're going metaphorical with like maternal milk and you're like really going for it, like, oh my god, please just go back to freshman year composition, because that is so bad and labored. Like, that is so cheap. Like, anyway.
So also, June is still June still has a pussing bullet wound.
True. Yes, true statement.
Appears to be fine. Totally recovered. The magic of Gilead.
Amazing. So I nominate we put a pin in this for this episode and just move on to the Waterfords.
I'm happy with that. Okay. Let's talk about Fred and Serena.
Let's talk about how bizarrely Fred seems to understand what's going on and Serena doesn't. I kind of love that Fred gets what's happening and Serena still thinks she can be Phyllis Schlafly in the middle of this. And the Yvonne Strahovski's face when she was like cradling her belly or whatever, I was like, girl, just get your Emmy. Like, she is going for it and I loved it. She has no concept of reality at all, outside of one that she would like to create for herself. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
I think Fred's like empathy is entirely performative, but I do think he understands that he has no power. Like, I do think he has gotten to the point where he understands that this blew up in his face and it's over now. And the only revenge he has is to destroy Serena.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I think it's so fascinating that like, this was the world Serena created, right? Because she couldn't have kids. And she was the driving impetus, the intellectual driving impetus behind so much of Gilead. And like, but there's not an ounce of pragmatism in her bones or realistic understanding.
Nope.
And like, Fred is this horrible, manipulative, damaged human, but he like sees the world for what it is.
Yeah.
And sees their situation for what it is. And Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for them like going back and forth through mediators like Rita. And like parts of what they did with Rita, I loved her. Like I could watch that scene of her eating sushi for the first time sitting at the table in the sunlight for like a bazillion times, because she finally gets back part of her humanity that they took from her. And like the fact that Fred understands that and Serena doesn't.
Fascinating and baffling, and yet entirely within character. How have they kept Fred and Serena entirely in character?
Yeah.
And yet like June and Janine are just wildling out anyway.
And I understand June, like she lashes out when she feels guilty. Well, it's a human response. I'm not saying it's not. It's a June response. I'm not saying it's not. But I was so tired of her, like, I'm keeping us alive. I blah, blah, blah. I'm doing this. I should have left you a long time ago. And I'm like,
cool, yeah, you should have, because then she would have been free of your bullshit. But anyway.
Janine calling herself a mushroom because she's always in the dark was the best thing. I love her so much.
She's the best. She's the best. I think what we learned from this episode is that
a good question.
Rita is the hero of the series. Rita is very much setting herself up to be the Eliza Hamilton.
I was about to say Rita is now our Eliza Hamilton.
And I think that if this stays in the path it's currently on, where June's going to blow up everything, but Rita's going to be the one that does actual change, it's going to be a really fun conversation about how change happens.
And I will say, I haven't shared this with you yet. I usually, as you guys all know, I monitor a lot of our, majority of our comments, but we have had a couple of people, like 3 or 4, point out that the show appears to be taking a sharp turn towards the content of the Testaments.
Oh, do I have to speed read it this weekend?
Dude, you do. And I meant to tell you this offline. So sorry, folks, we're doing this online. Like legit. Like 4 or 5 of our like loyal subscribers and watchers have said like, oh, this all makes sense if you read the Testaments. And
okay, I'll do that this weekend.
The Testaments is going to be a TV show.
Sure it is. Okay.
So they're like, it appears, and I trust our viewers implicitly on this, that they are turning the show towards what was written in the Testaments.
Okay. So we're gonna stop the recap here then, because it sounds like I got to read the Testaments and tell Dr. Erin what the Testaments is about. For anyone who doesn't follow us to other series, I read a lot quicker than Dr. Erin does, and so it is usually my responsibility to read things and inform.
Correct.
So I will do that between the recaps of episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And report back, and may dive into the comments myself.
Yeah.
If that's happening, like, that's cool. That is, I might have some feelings and thoughts on that in terms of like, are we being Star Wars or are we being Marvel here, and what we expect people to know?
Like who's driving the content here?
Who's driving the content here? So, okay, I'm processing this all in real time, as you guys can tell.
Yeah.
Okay. Watch this space.
Sorry, I meant to that was on my list of things to tell you before we started filming, and then I forgot.
It's okay. People get to see how the sausage is made sometimes, and this is one of those times.
You're welcome to the room where it happens, everybody.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep making Hamilton references.
We are post my TEDx weekend, and we're still getting back into the swing of things.
Ooh, TEDx speaker Dr. Kristen in the house.
Speaking of,
a
little bit of site business here.
Site business, let's do it.
We've had some requests for me to talk about how I landed the TEDx, what my presentation process was like, what everything was. If you're not familiar with TEDx, TED is an international organization that essentially just says the way the world changes are ideas. And so we're going to create spaces for people to present those ideas. A TEDx is a locally organized event that does that. And the organizers in South Lake Tahoe, California, decided that my idea was one of those things that could change the world. And they invited me to come out and share their stage this past weekend. So on Tuesday, this is airing like just after it happened. So you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But I will be doing a live explanation with my speaking coach, actually, and Dr. Erin's going to be chatting with us, me and Trisha Brooke, about what that looked like. So if you're watching this, it's already up. So
it's already there.
Look around the YouTubes and find it yourself. Additionally, we have heard your cries for Game of Thrones analysis.
We have. We take our comments to heart, as you know from our thoughtful responses, and we've heard your cries. We've heard your cries.
And we will answer them on 2 conditions. One is that we will be doing one video.
One Game of Thrones video.
That's a lot. We're doing one video. The second, in which we will answer any questions people have, we will be talking largely about the women of Game of Thrones. We will be focusing most likely on Arya and Daenerys because their storylines are the ones that make us the most grumpy. We'll throw Cersei in there for good measure, and I'm always up for talking about that Bran and Jaime are the true ship of Game of Thrones. So we will be talking about all of that. In order for us to talk about that, we're hitting condition dose, which is we need to get to 1,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you guys help us get to 1,000 subscribers, we will give you the Game of Thrones analysis of your dreams.
Yes.
But not, we're as we record this, we're sitting at about 800, and we love all 803 of you that currently exist. We need a few more. So help us get there, and we will talk all about Jaime's hair, because I have a theory on the taxonomy of Jaime Lannister's hair, and we will be happy to share all of those thoughts, feelings, and actions for 1,000 subscribers.
For 1,000 subscribers. We do have lots of hair taxonomies for various things. And speaking of videos that we promised we will do, we have also heard your cries for a live Handmaid's Tale discussion. We are in the process now of organizing it. As this video airs, it'll probably be after our episode 5 video drops. So make sure if you have questions, if you have things you want us to talk about, we're just going to have a discussion. We're going to bring on our dear friend and subscriber, Dr. Nadine Thornhill, who is a fantastic conversationalist about all things, but we love to talk to her about The Handmaid's Tale, as you guys have seen in the comments. So we'll just have the chats. We haven't decided what time it is, but we both live in the East Coast, so it will be a time that is conducive to us. So we hope as many of you can make it as possible. We will do like an announcement, like a live announcement video on the YouTubes to make sure you guys know when it's happening, and you can get your comments and questions in for things you want us to talk about. We'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. We'll probably do another one later on in the season. I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to yell about. But that's the site business done and dusted.
And as always, if you want to stay up to date with everything we're doing, the best way to do that is our newsletter. And the way to subscribe to that, the link is below in these YouTube show notes. We send that out every week with some thoughts, feelings, and updates. And so if you want to make sure you always know what the good doctors are doing, subscribe to the digest.
That is our episode 4 coverage for season 4 of The Handmaid's Tale. We will see you all for episode 5 next week, or for some other type of content that we have produced in the interim.
However we join you, we deeply hope you are not covered in milk. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.